This is CBC News. At 12 o'clock, we're at minus 16 with mainly sunny skies over downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. Premier Wab Kinew says Manitoba should prepare to ride the wave of uncertainty, but he's confident the province will get through whatever happens with U.S. tariffs. He says his goal is to protect Manitoba jobs, particularly in the manufacturing sector, and Kinew says his government is working on two versions of next month's provincial budget.
The budget as though there are no tariffs, and then we've got a contingency plan. Where if there are tariffs, we've done a lot of modeling both in-house and getting some experts from outside of government to help us answer the question, what would be the impact on our GDP, what would be the impact on government revenues.
Manitoba's manufacturing sector is bracing for whatever may come next as the days count down to those possible tariffs. Peerless Garments has operated in Winnipeg for 85 years. It employs around 87 people. Albert Altasi is the owner and CEO. He, like others, has millions of dollars in contracts with companies in the United States.
The whole Canada is concerned. It's not only us and that. Every manufacturer is concerned. Every person, every company who relies on importing products from the United States or exporting products from the United States, it's the same thing. We go both ways. We export and we import.
Altasi says if he loses the U.S. contracts, he may have to lay off 30% of his workforce. Meanwhile, another longtime Winnipeg manufacturer is benefiting from the move to buy Canadian. Howard Raber owns Raber Gloves, which has made the famous leather garbage mitts in the city since 1941. He strictly sells in Canada, and he's seen his sales grow in the past few weeks.
We've developed a loyal following over the years, and we're noticing now more than ever that the, let alone based in Canada, but the Made in Canada moniker is carrying a lot more weight and is gaining momentum.
Raber says he has to purchase most of his leather, lining, and thread in U.S. dollars, so the drop in Canadian dollar is increasing his costs, but the bump in sales is helping to offset that. And meanwhile, Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine has met with President Vladimir Zelensky in Kyiv. It follows days of tense accusations from both countries as the U.S. started peace talks with Russia, but without Ukraine or Europe at the table. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has more from London.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Keith Kellogg, President Trump's envoy to Ukraine, shook hands, but a joint news conference scheduled for after the meeting was cancelled. An indication, perhaps, of just how delicate this diplomatic dance is. President Trump falsely accusing Ukraine of starting the war. President Zelensky saying he believes Trump was living in a Russian disinformation bubble. Then the US leader calling his Ukrainian counterpart a dictator for not holding elections. The EU spokesperson Stefan de Kiersmacher challenged Trump's claims.
President Zelensky was legitimately elected in free, fair and democratic elections. Ukraine is a democracy. Putin's Russia is not.
All this just days after the US initiated talks with Russia without Ukraine. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Heritage Minister Pascale St-Onge is proposing a new mandate for the CBC. It includes steady funding, regardless of which party is in power. She says increased funding for CBC is vital in an age of misinformation.
I think we need to envision the investments that we're making in our public broadcaster as a national security issue. We know that our sovereignty is more than ever an issue that Canadians are preoccupied about. Protecting Canadian sovereignty implies investing in our means of communication and in being able to resist a foreign influence.
St-Onge says $32 per person per year spending on the public broadcaster is the second lowest of all the G7 countries. Only the United States spends less. However, there are no guarantees the minister's plan will survive the next general election, which is expected as early as this spring. Indeed, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre reiterated his pledge to cut roughly $1 billion from the funding of the CBC reserves. He says that the CBC receives. He'll cut $1 billion from it. He says he'd do that by shutting down the English television service.
Almost nobody watches CBC television. They have among the worst ratings of any network, and yet Trudeau gives them billions more. We're going to cut wasteful spending, not just there, but across the government to bring down inflation, deficits, and taxes.
However, Poilievre says he would continue to fund Radio-Canada, the CBC's French language service. And finally, a Hockey Hall of Fame goalie says anything can happen in the net in tonight's Four Nations Faceoff final between Canada and the United States. It's a game charged with national pride and politics, and the feelings of Winnipeggers might be split since the Jets' own Connor Hellebuck is in the goal for the U.S. Ken Dryden on what to expect between the pipes tonight.
In a one-game thing, whether you're a Vezina Trophy winner or whether you're not, it doesn't matter. They go into that game equal. And it is very important for both of those goalies to demonstrate early to their team that they are in good hands back in that defensive zone.
Puck drop is at 7 tonight. Mainly sunny in Winnipeg this afternoon, a high of -15 with wind from the south. Brandon sunny, a high of -17. Dauphin mainly sunny and windy, a high of -14 degrees.
Magandang hapon, good afternoon Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. This is Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube streaming page. As you heard, Canada and the U.S. are gearing up for the Four Nations Faceoff final tonight in Boston. How are you feeling about all of the patriotic hype surrounding it? It is the topic of our call-in conversation, so gather your thoughts and call us in our second half hour of the program. First, though, a trip up north where kids get to jab left, hook right, and clinch as they focused on learning boxing skills. We'll have that conversation. First, though, how Manitoba's manufacturing industry is bracing for potential tariffs and how companies are also navigating the heightened demand for Canadian-made goods. Stay tuned. About 10% of Manitobans work in manufacturing, and a lot of the things we export here in the province go to the U.S., about 80%. So it goes without saying that the potential U.S. tariffs could have a huge impact on our economy. But on the flip side, the push to buy Canadian has never been stronger. Terry Shaw is a regional vice president with the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. He spoke with Information Radio host Marcy Marcusa this morning.
What are you hearing from businesses right now about their biggest concerns?
A lot of uncertainty, and the uncertainty is getting people to sit on their hands. They're stopping investment, they're stopping hiring, they're postponing or maybe canceling planned expansions, things like that. And that's in advance of the tariffs. If the tariffs are implemented, we did a national survey, would have been about a month ago now. Half of people said that they will lay off workers. Half of Canadian manufacturers said that they will look at shifting some production to the United States. And just under half, 46% of them, said that they will cancel some planned investments. So expansions, hiring, new technologies, it just all stops. So pretty dramatic numbers if the tariffs come in.
How worried should we be in Manitoba? We have some big companies here that actually have manufacturing on both sides of the border. Mm-hmm. How worried should we be that if this all comes to fruition, they'll say, well, we're going to close the Canadian manufacturing in Manitoba because, frankly, the dollar is a challenge and we make more money in the States and that's just our bottom line. And what, are we worried about losing people?
We're already seeing a bit of leakage. I think the reality is, and the stat I like to put out is 60% of what we ship to the United States is an intermediate input. It's something that U.S. manufacturers use to create their finished good. Over half of what we bring into Canada from U.S. exports are intermediate inputs. So the reason you see companies on both sides of the border is because it makes sense, right? Like, we don't compete as economies, Canada and the U.S. We collaborate. We actually build things together, have for many, many decades, and will continue to.
I saw you sort of acknowledging, at least when I was talking about the challenge of the statement that we'll just find new markets.
Yeah, it's not that simple. So a couple of things. The U.S. is a huge economy. We're never going to not do business with the United States. Proximity. You can drive 90 minutes out and you're in the United States, right? And so even if you can find new customers, what are the logistics? What are the supply chain realities? What are the costing realities? What does that do to your production timelines if I can't make it today, ship it down, and sell it tomorrow, but I got to get it to a port, I got to get it to a train, I got to get it overseas, etc. So we do have members looking to diversify markets. But one of the things Howard said was local procurement. Longer term, we would love to see some government procurement reform around that buy local. Spence Brothers Pizza, Bothwell Cheese. What we're seeing at the consumer level is fantastic. We need to see it at the larger industrial level. What are we doing to support fire trucks being made locally? What are we doing to support specialized vehicles and other kind of like products here through government procurement reforms?
So the government is talking about, has floated at least, Wab Kinew, the premier who will be here in an hour, talked about potential for tax deferral.
Absolutely.
Is that, and then we have other provinces actually that are making plans to have contingency funds and such just in case. What would you like to see from the province?
Short term, anything that we can do to keep dollars in the pockets of manufacturers so they can keep paying workers to come into work every day, right? The reality of that is that depends on your U.S. Trade exposure, right? Like we've got some companies that have 80, 85, 90% U.S. trade exposure. You can defer taxes, you can put in work share programs, things like that, but that's not going to keep their employees there. And so we need some unique supports depending on the situation and the unique corporate footprint.
I just want to ask you this because I just want to make mention here. When you think of big manufacturers in Manitoba, and I'm not going to name all of them, of course, but I mean Peerless and New Flyer, Western Glove, Silver Jeans, Mondetta, Richardson, Boeing, Maple Leaf, the sheet metal in Gerdau, in steel rather, in Selkirk, Price Industries. We did call a lot of manufacturers. Many of them returned our calls and spoke with us, but didn't actually want to. They're waiting.
Yep.
They didn't want to go on the air. They're kind of waiting. I'm wondering if you're sensing a nervousness and maybe how this compares to last time Trump put tariffs our way.
Yeah, I wasn't in the role last time, but I definitely sense a dramatic difference, right? Like the tariffs are expanded. He's emboldened in some of the things he's saying, and things are changing, not daily anymore, but very regularly, right? And so that uncertainty is really driving people to not only sit in their hands in terms of investments and expansion plans, but just what do they communicate to their staff? What do they communicate to their customers, to their suppliers? So that uncertainty really has people, I think, kind of hunkering down a bit.
Terry Shaw, Regional VP with the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters. He was speaking with Information Radio earlier today.
Have you visited CBC's Being Black in Canada website? It's an online platform to explore the stories and experiences of Black Canadians across the country. A space for news, documentaries, arts and culture, Black achievement in sports, and so much more. Celebrating a uniquely Canadian perspective on Black issues with the cultural moments that matter to Black Canadians. Visit cbc.ca/Being Black in Canada.
You're listening to Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 102.5 FM in Pukatawagan, 97.9 FM in Brandon, in Winnipeg, 89.3 FM. And still to come on our call-in conversation as Canada and the U.S. gear up for the Four Nations Faceoff final tonight in Boston. How are you feeling about all of the patriotic hype surrounding it? Maybe you feel it very deeply, maybe not. It's the topic of our call-in conversation coming up in our next half hour of the program. First, though, a trip up north where kids got to jab left, hook right, clinch as they focused on learning boxing skills. We'll have more on that conversation. I'm Faith Fundal here on Radio Noon. Our streaming producer, Kevin Ipatebo, May McKillop on the controls. Sierra Sanders is our director, and Wendy Parker is our producer today. We are expecting sunny conditions for much of the listening region except for Churchill, where we're expecting a few clouds. A temperature high for Winnipeg of minus 15 degrees, minus 17 for Brandon, Dauphin, minus 14. In Thompson, high of minus 14 degrees. And in Churchill today, a high of minus 15, I should say. It will start to clear as the day progresses. Sunny and minus 17 here in Winnipeg, minus 21 in Brandon with sunny conditions. Sunny and minus 18 in Dauphin, Thompson, mainly sunny and minus 16 degrees. And in Churchill this hour, sunny and minus 13 degrees. We're at 15 minutes after 12 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. And coming up next.
That was a good point.
Might sound familiar to you. Someone dribbling a basketball on a floor, sneakers making that signature squeak sound. But this isn't a Winnipeg gym. It is in Puckatawagan, a fly-in only community. And our next guest, Dylan Martin, was at that rec center just a couple of weeks ago. Dylan manages Winnipeg's Pan Am Boxing Club and is in studio now. Welcome to the program, Dylan. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
People don't accidentally fly into Puckatawagan because it's a fly-in community. When one of your club members told you that they were going and wanted you to come, what made you say yes?
It was really good opportunity to try to bring boxing, which we've always talked about, to northern communities. We feel at Pan Am, and even me, we feel boxing is a great sport to take really anywhere, but especially up north because you only need a set of gloves or a sparring partner. Well, sorry, not even just a friend. You need a set of gloves,
right,
or a friend or a wall or a tree, and you can do the sport to its fullest.
And I know you've always wanted to go. This
Yes.
was also your first time.
Yep.
So you flew in on this smaller airplane where you can see the flight deck, the cockpit. You can see how close you are to the runway. You land, you get out. What stood out to you?
Quiet. Obviously there's still things around, but very quiet, very calm. Immediately when you get off the plane, you feel sort of away from, even though Winnipeg's it is a city, so it's fast-paced enough, but you feel slowed down a little bit.
You knew you were in a different place.
Immediately, but I enjoyed it. And I'm used to I lived in the country when I was younger, so I'm used to that. So it's nice to get back to that and even more into it for a bit.
When you got there, were you like, right, I made the right decision? I'm glad I said yes, this was important.
Yes, but it wasn't even when I stepped off the plane. It was like, that was the first, I was already happy. It was good. It was a good experience right from the get-go. It was getting the experiences with the community members, but especially the youth that were there that we got to work with.
One of the videos that you've taken shows kids all lined up.
Yeah, it's they're hitting the wall. So again, you don't need much. You can just line up on a wall. If it's solid, you can go do drills there, and that's what we did. Because we didn't have heavy bags with us, we didn't fly them up.
I'm going to play that sound because I think it's important for folks to hear it here.
Of course.
So folks on our YouTube stream, when we play the video there, they'll see essentially this line of kids with you there, getting ready, and then you say, against the wall, go nonstop. You ask them to rush the wall, and they keep punching with their gloves. Why was this part of the drill that you had them do?
Yeah, again, we couldn't fly heavy bags in, but you don't need heavy bags, and so it's just a good way to keep them engaged.
The wall was essentially your bag.
It was perfect. Yeah, that's it. And if it was summer, I would have had them outside using trees if that's what we had. We'll use whatever we have, and it just keeps them engaged. Like, hitting the air is okay, but when you can actually hit something physically that's not going to be destroyed or damaged, okay, perfect. It was perfect.
What I noticed when I watched that video was, you were obviously very excited. I noticed you like that. But then you look at the kids and they were all, they had the same look on their faces as you did before they started rushing and as they were doing it. And then as sort of they turned around to check, hey, am I doing this right? Is my perception right there? Was it that much fun? And
yes, easy answer. Yes. I had several kids when we were leaving tell me their new favorite sport is boxing. Like, they want to box every day. That's what they're telling us. We had some of the kids come twice a day. We'd work with them in the afternoon. We'd see them again in the evening to do it again. So they really loved it. We made it fun. Obviously, I expected them to like it, but it was great to hear that from them, not from parents, but from the people doing it.
What was your sense, because you were there for a few days, what was your sense when you weren't inside the rec center doing the thing with the kids? You had chats with people. What was your sense of what you and the work that you folks were doing meant? What did it mean for them?
Yeah, and so we sort of knew this going up, and then Glenn Ringrose of Ringer Safety, he brought us up. He was contracting to go up. He told me that they need things in communities, these flying communities. They need things to do. The kids have nothing to do. Even the members, the community members, the adults have nothing to do. And so everyone that we talked to, teachers, parents, whoever, workers, they were so excited and so grateful to have us up there, which made it that much better to be there because we knew they appreciated it, they wanted it, and it seemed like they wanted us to come back as soon as we could, really, and that's the goal. We would love to get back up to Puckatawagan any northern communities. It'd be great to be able to bring this experience anywhere.
Our folks watching the YouTube stream are seeing that exact video I was describing for you. You're already planning on coming back, or at least hoping to come back to the community. What are you hoping the kids, and maybe even the adults, got out of your short visit and your next future visit?
Yeah, a new passion, right? Because again, you don't even need gloves to do it. We did a lot of drills without gloves, without the wall. So I'm hoping that some of the kids keep doing that with their friends in controlled ways, of course, nothing crazy, but a new passion for boxing, but even just for being active in a sport, right? A lot of people don't like team sports. It needs a lot of equipment, specialty stuff to do it, a lot of people to do it, whereas boxing, you could be at home in your room, shadow boxing. You are boxing. That's boxing. Right. So, yeah, I'm just hoping that the community considers it as an opportunity for everyone there.
And outside of enjoyment, it's actually more than that, right? What is it that we haven't? What haven't we said out loud yet? That is, I know, obvious to you and many people who box. What do you get out of this outside of just enjoyment?
Yeah, it's, a sense of, for me, it's passion. Like, I love the sport, and I wanted to share that with them, and I think I was able to do that in a small, short time frame. But even for them, it'll give them something new to do, something new to strive towards. And even if it's not competitive, it's just being able to go and know that, hey, I'm a boxer, right? Whether they fought or not, they're a boxer now. And they can say that, and they can use that, and they can be confident with it, and they can, again, strive for something on their own.
Dylan, thanks for coming in, and glad you were able to share this with us. And thanks for the photos and the videos, too.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dylan Martin manages the Pan Am Boxing Club in Winnipeg. As you heard, he was in Pukatawagan a couple of weeks ago teaching kids some boxing skills.
Thought I'd seen enough, now I find I've a bird's eye view of my life. Thought I'd better come down, now I know about the crabs in the barrel, snakes with their idols. So I go on, grab another rung, upward moving, set up to stop. I'm a climber and a fast one too fast to get dragged down by you. Thought I was unrehearsed, now I see. Off cuff, it's easier to roll my sleeves. Thought I'd better cool off, now I lay more tinder to burn and jello the flames. So I go on, feeling the pit, getting second opinions and I don't quit. If I bite off more than is polite, call me sharp tongue, all jaws, I'm getting my slice. Thought I was cooked, now I see. I had a bad recipe. Couldn't stand the heat, now I'm older. My big mouth matured, my taste buds are bolder. So I go on, dash of this and night. Can't get to the pepper without a good crack. If I'm testy, honey, I'm free. It's my plate, my life, let me be. I'd seen enough, now I find I've a bird's eye view of my life.
That is Lady of the Red and a tune called Cracked Pepper. We're at 25 minutes after 12 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 100.9 FM in Thompson, 12:30 a.m. in Churchill, and of course on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. I'm Faith Fundal. Now, Thursday is our word day, and this week we're looking at a word you might say when things go sideways. Here's Elizabeth Withy.
If you had to describe a situation where something goes seriously awry, well, you've got lots of words to choose from, and I don't mean swear words. There's failure, disaster, a hot mess, a train wreck, catastrophe, fiasco, and even debacle. The word debacle comes from French in the 1600s. In French, it was pronounced Debacle because of the two French accents, and it was then borrowed in English. Of course, we've since anglicized it. In British English, you might hear Debacle, and here in North America, Debacle. The word comes from the verb débâcler, meaning free or unleash, and earlier, unbar, as in remove a stick or rod from, say, a window or door. Débâcler, unbar. Debacle was used in reference to spring melt, say on a river. The water rises quickly, the ice breaks up, and sometimes you get a flood of freed water. Voilà, un débâcle.
Failure to communicate is what we've got, my dear. A failure of imagination is what brought us here.
That part of the word bâcler comes from Latin, baculum, and it relates to the Latin word bacillus, meaning wand or staff, which gave rise to medical terms like bacteria.
Ask me the life before disaster. When did it begin? When did it end?
Debacle is also vaguely related, at least in words, to something you're bound to see in France. A type of stick or wand, but not one for doing magic or propping open a door. This particular type of stick or wand is for eating. You guessed it, a baguette.
Johnny Baguette, c'est pas une tapette, c'est un boulanger.
For CBC Radio, I'm Elizabeth Withy.
Pas encore de fiancé. J'ai besoin de son pain au levain pour déjeuner.
Now, if there's a word you're wondering about, you can drop a line to Elizabeth to wordnerd@cbc.ca. And speaking of debacle,
hello out there, we're on the air. It's hockey night tonight. Tension grows.
will you be watching the Four Nations Faceoff final between Canada and the U.S. tonight? Because it is a talker. We want to hear how you're feeling about it. Patriotism has been the ongoing undercurrent for the tournament. So if you could pick only 3 words to describe how you feel about the game tonight, what would you choose? Are you feeling more patriotic than usual? Perhaps this game means a lot to you and you think it's the right arena for airing our national grievances, or do you think hockey shouldn't be the place to air anti-American angst? Our phone lines will open in our next half hour, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us, 204-588-7355. But we'd rather hear from you, so give us a call in our next half hour, 204-780-0893, or text 204-588-7355. The topic of discussion is tonight's face-off at the Four Nations final. Stay tuned for that. Coming up next here on Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 12:30 a.m. in Churchill, on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. The time is 12:30.
This is CBC News. At 12:30, we're at minus 16 with mainly sunny skies in downtown Winnipeg. Good afternoon. I'm Matt Humphrey. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but Manitoba's premier is confident this province can ride the wave. That comes from Premier Wab Kinew, talking about the effect of potential U.S. tariffs. He says the province is preparing ways to protect jobs, particularly in the manufacturing sector, if there are tariffs. Kinew says they've been consulting with people internally and externally on 2 different budgets to be released next month.
When the budget comes out, you're going to see a lot of that, and you're going to see, I guess, basically the 2 forks in the road. Here's the budget if all goes well, and here's the budget where we have to stand up to support manufacturers and Manitobans in a very direct way. What I would say about the overall direction that we're taking, though, is we don't want to make the situation worse.
Kinew says that means ensuring Manitobans keep working, and that doesn't mean tightening the purse strings in areas such as healthcare. Meanwhile, the owner of Raber Gloves says he's seeing an increase in sales as people are looking to buy Canadian. It's been the home of garbage mitts since 1941. Howard Raber says he only sells in Canada, but he is seeing his input costs increase.
The weakening Canadian dollar is affecting our pricing currently because our leather, our lining, the majority of the components that goes into our products is bought in U.S. dollars. And for this year alone, it's reflected a cost increase of anywhere between 8 and 10%.
However, Raber says some of those increasing costs are being offset by the increase in sales as more people buy Canadian. And as you've been hearing, we are hours away from one of the most anticipated hockey games in years, Canada versus the United States, in the final of the new Four Nations Faceoff. Jamie Strachan has more on a cross-border battle that goes well beyond the ice.
The tension around this game being fueled by the politics that surround it. The simmering war of words, most coming from U.S. President Donald Trump, who won't be at the game but spoke to the American team this morning. Also in a tweet this morning, he continued to push the idea of Canada as a 51st state and again referred to Justin Trudeau as governor. All of this has fueled renewed patriotism in Canada. Many fans have made the trip to Boston.
Well, just the build-up with everything going on. There's been a great series to watch, but also just everything in politics these days. It just seems like something you can't miss.
Players like Sidney Crosby say this game is different.
I think it's been something probably even more than maybe what people expected. We're a pretty hockey-proud country.
The game is sold out. Tickets on the secondary market going for more than $1,200 Canadian. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Boston.
And that is your CBC News from Winnipeg. For news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
Back soon.
Matt Humphrey from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. I'm Faith Fundal here on Radio Noon on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, 97.9 FM in Brandon, and of course on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. I know the phone lines have started ringing. I'm going to remind you what the phone numbers are for our call-in conversation. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, or text us at 204-588-7355, asking you about how you're feeling about all of the patriotic hype surrounding tonight's game. And I see the phone lines ringing. I'm very excited. We'll get to it shortly. First, though, something I'm also excited about. Riley Lachuk, our CBC Manitoba weather specialist, joining us now. What was your walk-in like today?
The air didn't hurt my face. But the thing is, it was minus 22 when I walked into work still.
It's fine. Because it didn't hurt, and we know what that means. It means spring is not far away.
Yeah. Sometimes a blank map tells the best story. The map of watches and warnings is now blank. There's nothing on it. Extreme cold warnings have all ended. We're on the upswing here as we get through the next few days. Today, yes, still chilly, but once we get into the next few days, things will start to look up. So mostly sunny skies today. There is a bit of cloud hanging around sort of the north basin of Lake Winnipeg into parts of northern Manitoba, but by and large, we're looking at a mainly sunny day today. Winnipeg up to minus 16 right now. Brandon's at minus 21, minus 16 in Thompson as well. Churchill's at minus 13. Mostly sunny today. A bit of cloud starts to build in as we get into the overnight hours tonight, along with some very gusty southerly winds. Out of some of this cloud cover, maybe a couple of scattered flurries, particularly in northern Manitoba. But by and large, we're looking at just a bit of cloud as we get through the day on Thursday into Friday. Windy start tomorrow. Could see some wind gusts, particularly in the morning, up to 50 or 60. Those do back off through the afternoon hours, but that persistent chance of some scattered flurries kind of hangs around as we get through the day Friday into Saturday before maybe a little bit more substantial precipitation in the form of maybe even rain and snow as we get into the day on Sunday. Winnipeg aiming for minus 15 today. I actually think we can probably do better than that as we get through the later afternoon. We'll see. Minus 13 in Brandon and Thompson, mostly sunny today. Minus 7 tomorrow, minus 2 for Saturday, plus 1 for Sunday with periods of rain or snow across southern Manitoba, plus 3 for Monday with maybe a few scattered flurries.
Okay, there you go.
Almost the entire 7-day forecast is above zero.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's Riley Lechuk, our CBC Manitoba weather specialist. He'll be back with an update on your forecast on Up to Speed from 3 to 6 p.m. We're at just about 36 minutes after 12 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, and the tension is intensifying ahead of tonight's final in the Four Nations Faceoff, Canada against the U.S. If tonight's game is anything like the round-robin match last Saturday, it promises to be intense.
The Tkachuk brothers are on the ice, flanking Jack Eichel and John Cooper. Look out! They're going to drop the gloves right away. Matthew Tkachuk and Brandon Hagel right off the hop.
You can see now JT Miller's yapping at Parayko. I don't know what was said back there. He can't even get this face-off started.
And he's had words with Sam Bennett as well.
Yeah, watch.
I don't think we're done.
No, I don't think so either. Parayko's just waiting. And
So 3 fights. Just in the first 9 seconds of play, emotions ran high that night, many commentators pointing to the underlying tensions between the two countries as the culprit. And tonight likely will be no exception. So we're opening our phone lines for you folks, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us, 204-588-7355. Trevor Alexander is a writer with a hockey blog in Canada, in studio now. Welcome. Hello.
Thanks for having me, Faith.
We'll get to the analysis part in a moment
Sure,
here, because
yeah.
I want to go first to the phone lines. We have our first caller.
All right.
Stephen is on the line. Stephen, the question is, if you could only pick 3 words to describe how you feel about the game tonight, what would those 3 words be?
Well, you've said it, one of them already. Intense, proud, and decisive.
Okay. Why intense? Why proud? Why decisive?
Well, I think intense because we've seen the pre-show a few days ago of just how intense the game is going to be. Proud because we are proud of being Canadian, but we're proud also of being the country of hockey. Decisive because I believe we will be victorious. And decisive in the sense that not even tariffs or Trump or King Trump or whoever he calls himself can really impact the game that we love.
Thanks very much for the phone call, Stephen. And you can call us as well, like Stephen did, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. Text us, 204-588-7355. Trevor, how did we get here?
Well, I mean, we saw the lead in as you guys had played the few tussles that were that kicked off sort of the round robin game there. But legitimately, I mean, this has been building for a number of years as well. If you consider all the clashes that Canada and US have had over the last 20 years, so to speak, in terms of going all the way back to the 2002 Olympics with some of the stuff that was said in Salt Lake City with the women's team and certainly the men's team winning there, and then right through to 2010 in Vancouver, where that was an all-time high, another sort of powder keg in terms of how those two teams sort of played each other. And then World Juniors, we see it almost every year with the World Juniors as well, where the Americans always have a solid team and everybody's gunning for Canada at that tournament. So I mean, it's sort of just a buildup of having, more or less the best on best players now. The guys in the NHL who we know are some of the best players in the world actually getting a chance to compete at that level as well now and seeing how well that goes. So buildup has always been there. I think it's just a matter of the fact that we're getting to see it, firsthand now is kind of that intensity now because we want to be the best. It kind of reminds me not so much of the Summit Series back in the 70s, but certainly that Canada Cup in '87. Not so much with the players, but certainly that we're going to be our best versus your best, and we're going to go head to head. We're going to go toe to toe.
And so, I mean, in any other time, when you have their best and our best going head to head, and a bit of the history there, I mean, there's already the tension there, and then you add the political space that we all live in right now. We're asking folks what this game means to you. What do you make about all of this patriotism? Is this the right arena for airing national grievances, or do you think hockey shouldn't be the place to air anti-American angst? You can call us 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. Text us as well, 204-588-7355. We'd love to hear what you think. I know a lot of people are thinking about this as well. Trevor, the atmosphere, I mean, what do you think it's going to be given all of those things?
I mean, considering it's being played in the U.S., I think you're going to see pretty electric crowd tonight, just because of the sort of the division that's been sown between the two countries at this point. Just politically alone, it's pretty much a hotbed of news and activity. I mean, I know the president has already been on social media today setting out comments about tonight's game. So I mean,
and Americans are. Dare I say, much better at patriotism than at least showing it out overtly than Canadians are.
And that's one thing I think that legitimately, where in terms of the difference of two countries, both intensely proud of who we are, but one side does a lot more chest pounding than the other does in terms of just how proud they are of that. And I get that in terms of how these two countries are going to sort of look at each other and sort of go down the path of who's going to beat whom tonight. In saying that, though, I think that there is going to be an element of whoever remains emotionally in control, harnesses those emotions and focuses on the hockey side.
You're talking about the professional players.
Yeah, I'm talking about the players at this point now. Whoever sort of focuses that will certainly probably find success tonight. For the fans, though, I think this is going to be an opportunity for them to just let loose and really, again, I'm not trying to, cast a dark cloud over anybody here, but if America scores first, Team USA scores first, I think you're going to hear an unreal response from that crowd tonight.
We got a phone call earlier. We're asking you if you could only pick 3 words to describe how you feel about the game tonight. What would you choose? Perhaps you're feeling more patriotic than usual. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can also text us at 204-588-7355. I mean, you may also be listening thinking, this is not important to me. This is just like another game. We'd love to hear from you and reflect those feelings. Trevor Alexander is a hockey writer, and you're here with us. What I said those words, perhaps this doesn't matter to you, and you had a pretty good reaction to your face. What came up for you as I said that?
I'll be very honest. I'm not big on this tournament, and it's not that I don't want to see the best players play against each other. I don't want to see the greatest hockey in the world being played. I'm against the idea that players are going to get hurt. And especially with playoff runs coming up and teams on bubbles in terms of being close to either being in the playoffs or out of the playoffs. We've already seen a few teams affected by this. Shea Theodore of Vegas is out. Now, Vegas is already, a pretty good spot in terms of what's happening. But now that we found out that Charlie McAvoy for the U.S. has been seriously hurt, he's going to be out week to week. Boston is legitimately on that bubble. They don't know, they're hanging on to a wild card spot just barely right now.
There's a bigger picture here, essentially.
Right. And from what we've heard, the actual franchise, the Boston Bruins, are not happy with what's gone on in terms of his treatment for this injury. And that's one of those things, again, where you kind of go, the Olympics, when John Tavares got hurt at the Olympics for Canada in that 1 year, the Toronto Maple Leafs lost their mind. And understandably, he's one of their key players. This is the same type of idea that if we do it, these types of tournaments, these type of games mid-season, there's always that risk that some team is going to lose a star player. And if they do, how does that affect them down the stretch? So I'm not against the idea of best on best hockey, but I'm certainly against the idea of losing one of your best players if you need that player to succeed.
Do you think that's where you are also because of how it's been a while since we've had this tournament, this Four Nations thing?
Well, I mean, I've kind of been on the fence of saying, this is, they want to do the World Cup every 2 years between the Olympics now as well in terms of looking at that. I'm not really. I like the aura, the mystique around the Olympics, where you get that 4-year buildup of who's going to play, who's going to qualify, who's going to show up and prove to everybody they deserve to be on this team. I don't know if this sort of 2-year sort of window has that same aura anymore. If you're just doing it more often, it's going to kind of feel, and I hate to put it in this term, but it's going to feel a lot like the Winter Classic, where it just happens every year and everybody just kind of goes, oh, well, it's another game, no big deal. I like the 4-year buildup of the Olympics. I don't really like the idea that the NHL can sort of harness that and use it for their own ability, but hey, money rules everything when it comes to the NHL, and I'm not going to lie, they're making a lot of money off this.
Trevor Alexander is a writer for the hockey blog in Canada. We're opening up our phone lines, 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us, 204-588-7355. Perhaps there's a part of the conversation that we're not talking about that's obvious to you. Let us know what you think. Are you excited about the game tonight, or is this non-consequential for you? 204-780-0893 or text 204-588-7355. We're going to head over to the CBC's Jim Agapito because he went out to ask Winnipeggers how they feel about the game being played during the current political climate. Take a listen.
To me, it's twofold. I would love to see politics removed completely from all sports. I don't like having anthems in sports. I think it's a waste of time. They're already politicizing things. But as long as they're going to do that, what better chance for Canadians to kind of push back on the American rhetoric that we're being bombarded with the past month? It's never good when someone talks about you as if you're less than, so this is our chance to prove that we are not what people think that we are.
Considering the political climate, I think that we should beat the hell out of the States. Keep booing their anthem, puck drop, I want 10 fights.
My name is François Dufour. I think it's going to be more than just a game. It's going to be like somewhat of a political statement.
That is the CBC's Jim Agapito speaking with a whole bunch of folks, and we just heard a couple of voices there. In studio today, we have Trevor Alexander, a writer for the hockey blog in Canada. What did you think of what those folks said?
None of them are wrong. It's actually funny because I was, in this past week, sort of, watching some of the stuff that's coming out about, the booing of the anthems that Canadians are doing. And it actually made, last week tonight with John Oliver on HBO. And he was, having a comment about how, you've basically angered an entire population of people that don't get angry. Like kind of a funny statement. But at the end of the day, though, it legitimately, in terms of protest, it's about as peaceful as you're going to see Canadians get when it comes to sort of throwing their hands up and going, hey, wait a minute here. I don't have a problem with them, sort of booing the anthem. I do have a problem with everybody trying to just inject that political aspect into the game, much like one of the people that were interviewed was saying there. I would like it so that this game is just played because of the great hockey and not have to worry about the sort of the surrounding area. But as we know, sports are a bit of a microcosm of society, and we're going to probably see that get entered in terms of thrown into the mix if that's what it comes to.
And so the politics has been injected in the game. How has that changed the way you see hockey? Call us 204-780-0893. Perhaps you feel compelled to do something else to show other folks that you're displeased. 204-780-0893. We'd love to hear from you. What stands out for you as you sort of see this conversation? Because it's evolved, right? From just the booing to there's more now.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that it is becoming bigger than what it should be. But we can deny or try to deny that politics, hasn't been a big thing before. It has been. It's always been there. Whether it's Canadians against the Soviets, there was always that sort of pushback with the Cold War. Certainly when the Americans won, in terms of Lake Placid, when they won the gold medal, that was huge in terms of their miracle game. That was, hey, we beat the Soviets. Like, we're the best team. We beat the best team in the world. It's always kind of been there. It's never really been as intensified or certainly as hyperbolized as it is right now. But to say that it's not there is completely, inaccurate entirely, because we see, again, and I'm not trying to take anything away from, what the Olympics do, but the Olympics try and punish Russia as a country by removing their flag, removing their anthem, which is entirely political. They still allow the athletes to compete, but at the end of the day, though, they're trying to, remove that sort of political aspect out of it, even though by doing so, they're actually creating that atmosphere.
We have just a few minutes left here in our call-in conversation. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893. You can text us as well, 204-588-7355. We're having a conversation, of course, about the game tonight, but we're also talking about the politics. We're talking about the patriotism. Perhaps there's 3 words that you can choose to describe how you're feeling right now. What might they be? So let us know. Perhaps you're also feeling more patriotic than usual. We'd love to hear from you again, 204-780-0893, or text us 204-588-7355. We'll get to our next call in a minute here. But Trevor, what is it that we're not talking about that you think that you wish more people were thinking about or were saying out loud?
I mean, there's not a lot of sort of hidden messages out there. I would like to, sort of focus back on the fact that this game tonight was supposed to represent a very sort of big moment in the life of the Gaudreau family. Johnny Gaudreau was, Team USA came in with the Johnny Gaudreau jersey and was playing this tournament in honor of him. And that message seems to have gotten lost in the entire, wash of politics and us versus them and all that kind of stuff. I'd like to see, everybody remember that tonight. I mean, he was a big sort of fixture in that Boston hockey, scene that's down there. He played hockey down there for the university and everything. I want to see that Johnny Gaudreau sort of, not be forgotten in this entire sort of setup. He was a great hockey player. He certainly did a lot for hockey. And certainly it's one of those things that I think that if Team USA needed something to rally around, that would be a very good point to rally around.
Are there other players that you think might make a difference in the outcome tonight, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, the superstars are always going to be there. I would like to see that sort of Tampa Bay line that John Cooper put together for Canada, sort of bust through and maybe come through in a big way. I know that Braden Point again was moved around a little bit more in the last couple of games there, but at the end of the day, though, there's going to be a few guys on that Canadian roster that can either elevate or sort of just play the role that they've been playing or whatever. And I'd like to see them sort of step up. I know that goaltending is always going to be a thing. Jordan Binnington has to match Connor Hellebuck, and we know how great Connor is just because of how we see him every time in Winnipeg. But you got to match Connor Hellebuck's ability in the net in order to give Canada a chance as well.
What do you think of Mitch Marner being moved down in the lineup?
I don't have a problem with John Cooper finding the right fit for him. And it's not that he's not playing well. It's not that he's not finding the room to get out there and score.
Do I hear
it's
a butt coming?
Well, not so much a butt as much as it is just he needs to find the right guy to play next to. And that's maybe the biggest thing, is that he didn't really fit that well with Crosby, didn't really fit that well with McKinnon, didn't really fit that well with McDavid. Let's find you a fit that works well, because Marner's going to have to be a player tonight. He can't just sort of come along for the ride if that's what's going to happen tonight. He's got to show up and play and be effective at that point.
Just a few minutes left here on our call-in conversation about the big game tonight. 204-780-0893, 204-780-0893, or text us 204-588-7355. Trevor Alexander is in studio, a writer for the hockey blog in Canada. What about the Jets players in the tournament? We have Connor and Morrissey, like all of these folks who I know people are watching, but then people are like, you're in the wrong team. Like, right? Like, what do you make of that?
I mean, I think this is a good way for everybody to sort of get an idea as to how good the Jets have been this season. And take nothing away, Connor Hellebuck's always going to be a big story here. He's the goaltender of, that we've sort of, hitched our wagon to for the next 8 years. But he's proving again, time and time again, that he's one of the best goaltenders on the planet. By far, he has led, the U.S. to the best record. He certainly has looked like one of the best goaltenders in the tournament by far. I know there are going to be other people out there that say, yeah, but what about? It only matters what he's done so far in the tournament. He's going to play tonight. Like, let's make no mistakes about that. Having the current Vezina Trophy winner in your net is a huge bonus for the U.S. I like what Josh Morrissey's done for the Canadians. I mean, he hasn't been as impactful maybe as Hellebuck has been for the Americans, but again, I don't think he's been asked to be anything more than play your game, and Josh does a great job at doing that. He knows what his strengths are. He knows how to sort of manage the game really well. He's been playing a lot of minutes, which is good to see. So I think Josh Morrissey, if he is going to get more involved tonight, would be effective. If he plays his game effectively the way that we know he can play, whether it's a little bit more defensive, a little bit more offensive, whatever he chooses, I think that's good for both Winnipeg in terms of the Jets moving forward and for Canada tonight as well.
Trevor, before you go, if you could only pick three, I know we said many words already.
Yeah,
but if you could only pick 3 words to describe how you're feeling. So feeling is sad, happy, all of those things. What 3 words would you choose?
Definitely excited because I want to see, again, anytime there's national pride on the line, you want to cheer for Canada. You want to make sure that, they're going to win and you get a chance to witness that. So excited, first of all. Second, I'm happy, definitely happy that, we're in the final and that we're competing for sort of the top, whatever the trophy is going to be called or whatever they're moving forward with, but the Four Nations trophy at that point. And then a little bit sort of, I don't want to say confused, but a little bit sort of disappointed, I guess, in that it's become this political circus that it shouldn't be. It's about great hockey players and remembering a great hockey player in Johnny Gaudreau and having a great time, and everybody should be coming together and cheering on their favorite player instead of going, yeah, but you guys did this. Yeah, but you guys did this. I understand there's other things going on in the world, but at the end of the day, you don't need that in tonight's sort of scenario. You just need to make it about the hockey and the great hockey that we're going to see.
Trevor, thanks for coming in. It's really nice chatting with you.
Thank you, Faith. I appreciate it.
And take good care. Trevor Alexander, writer for the Hockey Blog in Canada. So, to keep it all in perspective, here's an ode to the game.
Hello out there, we're on the air. It's hockey night tonight. Tension grows, the whistle blows, and the puck goes down the ice. The goalie jumps, the players bump, the fans all go insane. Someone roars, Bobby scores at the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Second period, where a player's dash with skates to flash, the home team trails behind, but they grab the puck and go bursting up and they're down across the line. They storm the crease like bumblebees, they travel like a burning flame. We see them slide the puck inside, it's a 1-1 hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Third period, last came the playoffs, too. Take me where the hockey players face off down the rink, and the Stanley Cup is all filled up for the champs who win the drink. Now the final flick of the hockey stick, the one gigantic scream. The puck is in, the home team wins the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. Oh, the good old hockey game is the best game you can name. And the best game you can name is the good old hockey game. He shoots, he scores!
That's Stompin' Tom Connors with the hockey song. Tonight's the final in the Four Nations Faceoff with Canada facing off against the U.S. Puck drop is at 7 p.m. Coming up on Up to Speed this afternoon, they're considered legends in hardcore punk rock, and they're celebrating 2 milestones at the birth this weekend. One celebrates 25 years as a band, and another commemorates 20 years of their groundbreaking album, Wake the Dead. The best part is that they're from Winnipeg. Andrew Neufeld joins us on the show this afternoon to talk about what this all means. May McKillop is our technician on the program. Sierra Sanders, our director. Kevin Ipatebo, our streaming producer. Wendy Parker is our producer here on the program. And thanks for making space with us here on Radio Noon. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care. I'm Faith Fundal. Coming up on the program, next, Quirks and Quarks. Stay tuned.